So what do we do when these families are just not compliant? We just don't get along. So what I usually do first is try to clear up what actually is going on. So why is a family member acting this way? Maybe they're upset because they're not getting enough education or they're not getting updated on what's going on. The nurse comes in, gives the meds down the peg tube and just doesn't say anything about the medication, and they're frustrated because they're not sure what kind of medication they're getting. So you kind of have to figure out why they're acting the way they're acting. Why are they upset? Why are they angry? If they are angry, sometimes they don't want anything. They're just a bunch of assholes, and that's just the way things roll. Sometimes you just got to deal with it.
Yeah, low key, man. Sometimes there's just family members that are assholes. You kind of really set it point blank, period. And one little tip I feel like maybe that people should know. One thing that really irritates me is when the family member runs into the room when the patient is getting, like, let's just say, admitted to the ER. Like, a lot of people don't know that, hey, we're about to transfer them. There's about to be a lot of people in the room. We're going to wash her up. Like, we're doing things that, like, just step aside a little bit. And most of the time, I'm not a nurse that gets stepped over. I usually tell a family member, hey, like, we're going to need you to step out for a second. Can you wait in the waiting room? And I'm going to get you when the time is right. Then you have family members, when we're putting a central line in, they don't freaking listen. They come in and they're just in the way. Or I'm like, hey, man, we're not done yet, okay? Or they try to walk into the room. Hey, man, there's an x-ray coming in 2 minutes. You're going to have to leave again. Like, they just don't. I wish they respected us a little bit more during, that phase.
And you know how you have helicopter parents, you also have like helicopter family members, like Matt was mentioning, it's just like always hovering, always there. And if you really don't get along with them and you're really feeling heated, like, you're very angry, very frustrated, and you just want to explode, the best thing you could do for yourself is definitely just leave the room. Say, hey, I forgot to flush. Let me be right back. Hey, I forgot this. I'll be right back. And just leave the room and just kind of take a few deep breaths, walk around a little bit, and try to, let those emotions subside, because there's no reason why we should be exploding or yelling at the patient's family members in any sort of way. It's hard sometimes, but it's not very professional. And if you and the family is not really agreeing on the plan of care or the care that's being done, talk to your manager. Have them step in. Have them talk to the family, because you should not be arguing with the family or anything like that over care.
Yes, and that's one tip too for you guys is to, if you have family members that are like unfocused with what's going on, they're arguing, like, help them focus on the patient. And that happened with a patient that was on life support. The mom basically filed charges with court that the father can't see the son. But end of life care, we actually called the father to come in. They were divorced. They're literally arguing with each other that this is their fault in the freaking room while the patient is on pressors, while I'm hanging drips. So, like, the charge nurse asked the supervisor to come in, and they said, hey guys, so this is patient Susie Q on her deathbed. Like, let's just focus on the patient, as there's angels around her in this time of death. Like, cause he died the next day, man. So, like, sometimes you do have to just put focus, because that patient needs to be in peace when they're literally dying and you guys are arguing. So there's like some shitty times that, like, it happens. That's like, it's messed up to see, man. But we do see that side of healthcare.
You could also call like a code gray. I'm not sure what color it is in your hospital, but for us, it's code gray. And you could call that when a family is really being disruptive and really arguing with each other, just being loud, and you don't really know how to handle the situation. Call it code gray. They'll bring the police officers up there, and then probably a behavioral counselor or somebody that's going to help you in a situation. Because even though you might not be the source of the problem, the family might still take it up on you. And last thing you want is somebody screaming or yelling in your face, or worst case scenario, you getting punched by somebody or pushed or shoved. So don't be afraid to call that code gray. It's not gonna hurt you in any type of way, because you can't just provide a good patient care while the family is being unruly and aggressive toward each other. That's completely taking away the care from the patient and putting on a family. Like, there's no sense of doing that. Like, your family member is in a hospital. Let's focus on him. Like you said it, like I could have said it any better myself, where you said, Susie Q, it's on her deathbed. Like, there's angels around her. Let's focus on her. And there is times where I've actually been really angry with family. And of course I couldn't really do anything about it. So what I do during that time when I'm like frustrated, angry, is I focus even more on the patient. So I tend to kind of, I don't want to say ignore, but kind of tune out the family. Because sometimes they would be making like random comments, just trying to get you a little frustrated. but they're not really asking any kind of question. They're just saying random things. Just try and tune them out and just focus on the patient. When you talk to the patient, you give the patient eye contact, and just I guess you would say ignore a family member, but you also want to answer their questions just because you don't want to be rude. But when they're saying these random comments, you don't got to take part in that at all. Just try not to hear it.
I'm actually remembering a story that was like very disturbing for me when it comes to like, so we're talking about families, how to properly deal with them. There was a weird family member and the son was super, super involved in her mom. Like what creeped me out is like, I'm wiping the patient's butt and like, he just circles around. Like if you guys are on YouTube, he's kind of like looking and he's kind of like stepping in. He's like, oh, we're talking about her poop, And I'm like, I just felt a little bit uncomfortable. Like he's just so like involved. He's smelling the patient's poop. Like while I'm like doing the care, I'm like, what the heck? So like the next time I'm just like, hey, the patient's in pain a little bit. Do you mind stepping out for a second? I felt like there had to be a little bit of a boundary I had to break because that was uncomfortable for me.
Yeah, there was also a time for us where it was a gentleman, I think his daughter or stepdaughter or somebody, and like every time he was there, he would linger, like you said, the guy that you dealt with, and like it just seemed off. Like she would act different when he's around. He's super involved in this care, like there during all the baths, just walking around, taking a look, looking at everything, and just kind of making these weird remarks. And you kind of could, like, your instinct is almost telling you that there's something definitely going on here outside of hospital. There might be some abuse or some some harassment or some sexual contact going on that's not really appropriate. But, like sometimes you just, as much as you want to say something, you really can't. You got to wait for the guy to leave or whoever that person is to leave, and then try and talk to the patient about it. Be like, hey, are you okay with him being here with you during the whole hospital stay? You're okay with him being here, while we wash you up during the bath? And, this lady said that everything's fine, but we kind of suspected that it wasn't. There's nothing we could do. If the patient says, like, it's fine, let him do what he wants, then you can't really do anything about it unless you actually see some neglect going on. And it's very sad to look at that. Then kind of you feel powerless, you feel weak. Like in clinicals, we had those shaken baby syndrome babies where it's usually a cause of abuse, where the mom or dad takes the infant and just shakes it, and then what causes a fracture of their C vertebrae, C spine, C vertebrae. I'm not sure if it's one or two or which one it is, but that infant is basically paralyzed. It's never going to move again. It could breathe because the brainstem is fine. It's just everything below the C section, the C spine is completely flaccid. And you know that these injuries are caused by abuse and neglect. And before the state gets involved, guess what? The family's going to be in there. They could hold the kid. They could do whatever they want because state hasn't got there yet to intervene. So imagine being in that room with the infant that's now paralyzed for life. Is probably gonna eventually die in the next few years, maybe even less, knowing that the family did this, and the family's there crying, so sad, holding on like they don't know how it happened, but you really do know how it happened. You know how it happened because a lot of times, majority of the times, like 90% of the times, these injuries are caused by neglect, by trauma, by the kid being shaken, because somebody's babies want to just cry and they won't stop crying, and the family does not know what to do, so they just shake them to get them to stop crying. And it's very unfortunate to see that happen. And you got to be in that room completely okay with it, like ignoring the fact that this is due to abuse.
It's kind of fucked up that you mentioned a story. Like, it's sad that this kind of like stuff happens. And just one thing I thought about that gave me a lot of perspective is working med-surg to ICU, right? So being in med-surg, I've seen a lot more happy families, a little bit less like cases like this or emotional, psychological abuse, just dysfunctionality, like mental health things. So like jumping in from med-surg, patients are a little bit more happier, a little bit more thankful when you left because they're more talkative. And when you get to these sick patients with a lot of comorbidities and they're usually mostly unhappy with their life, like you see a lot more of these effed up stories. So we are more surrounded by negativity if you think about working ICU compared to like other nurses.
And it sucks. And it takes a toll on us. It takes a toll on us, on the patients, on the families. And that's one thing we go through as nurses.
Right, guys, and like, yeah. I also wanted to mention like boundaries. So like you definitely have to set boundaries, as messed up as it sounds for people that are like not in healthcare listening to it. Like we get walked over as nurses, man. Sometimes you got to put the foot down And I love to do it. Whenever a nurse gives me like a hard report that says like, oh, this family is A, B, and C, I'm like, sometimes maybe it's my ego. I'm like, oh, don't worry, I'll take care of it. Because we have those times where hey, like, let's talk to the side. Let's go on the side. We whisper little things that happen with the patient and stuff like that and the family. Like, I love those challenges sometimes because I kind of handle the family well. I don't know if I set boundaries, but that's one of those things. Like, if there's like 6 family members, I'll limit it. Like, if the family like gets in my way, I'll say, hey, listen, I'm delivering care. Let's just do 2 visitors. And I sound like a dick, but at the end of the day, I have to do things which is best for mostly my patient and then also myself, because I have to get my job done. And there's those overbearing families. So it's not black and white in nursing, right? We don't know what's too much, too little, but you set the boundary as a nurse. So definitely don't be afraid to do that, because patient families can be taxing, but they also could be rewarding. And that's the beauty of healthcare, where we walk in every day and it's a challenge with patients and the family.
In nursing, in general, nothing is ever black and white, especially in healthcare. And it just never one side to the story. So when you're dealing with family and the family is, I guess, when you're dealing with family and the family is helpful, be empathetic, involve them in the care. And there's those times where we are going to have those negative family members. You always have the option of calling a cold gray if they get disruptive. But also you kind of want to figure out, why are they angry in the first place? If you're feeling heated, angry at the moment, try to step out, relax, because you shouldn't be yelling at the family members. And like Matt said, you have to set boundaries of what they could do, of what they can help you with, and just the way you talk to them and what you allow to them to say to you.